Imagine you're having a great time at an event. Would you rather leave at its peak or prolong the experience and stay until a possibly less exciting end? Welcome to our first bite-sized life hack. In this episode, we're going to show you how you can use Daniel Kahneman's peak intro to improve the stories you remember from your experiences. In short, the peak intro says that we simply remember an experience as the average of how we felt during its peak and its end. Let's briefly have a look at the original studies to see where the peak intro comes from and to better understand how we can use it to our advantage. In those two original studies, one about ice water pain tolerance and one about a painful colonoscopy procedure, participants were split up into two groups that each started with the very same painful experience. The only difference happened after this first part. When the first group was done with this unpleasant experience, the second group had to endure it slightly longer, but also with a slightly less painful experience in the end. When it comes to these experiences, it is very easy to see that the second group had every bit of pain than the first group had, and more. Surprisingly though, it was the first group of participants that said that their experience were actually worse. Why was that? Well, because once an experience is over, we are only left with the story we tell ourselves about how we remember this experience, and the story is based on snapshots of its peak and end. Let's go back to our introduction example and have a look at how this works out. To write better stories for our experiences, it is important to know that there is an experiencing self that only lives in the present, and we all intuitively know that what it cares about are intensity and duration of each experience. But there is also a remembering self that takes over once the experience is done and tells us the story of how we remember this experience. While intensity is still important for those stories, it turns out that time has very little impact and is replaced by the snapshots of peak and end of each experience. How then do we evaluate our experiences? The thing with the experiencing self is that it only lives in the moment. And after each moment has passed, the story that the remembering self tells us is all that we get to keep from our experiences. And because we don't evaluate past experiences, but memories of past experiences, the experiencing self has no voice in these evaluations. This also means that if there is a direct conflict between the experiencing self and the remembering self, as we have seen in the previous examples, the remembering self always has the last word. And the approach the remembering self uses to evaluate an experience is very simple. It largely ignores any durations and simply takes the average of both peak and end of each experience. This is the peak intro. Let's now see how we can use it to write better stories for our experiences. Since we now know that all that counts for the evaluation of experiences is the story that the remembering self tells us afterwards, we could simply improve the stories of these experiences by reverse engineering them. For unpleasant or exhausting experiences, it is important not to finish at the peak, but rather to add a less intensive part at the end, especially when it's about recurring experiences or if we care about how we or other people would evaluate these experiences afterwards. For pleasant experiences, on the other hand, all we need to do is to try and end these experiences at their peak. If we want to prolong the duration of these, however, we could significantly change things up to start a new experience that would then be evaluated on its own. For more information on the peak intro, check out the links in the description below to both original studies as well as to the book Thinking, Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. And for more life hacks just like this, consider subscribing. Now it's your turn. How would you apply this theory to your daily life? Let us know your hack in the comments below and inspire us all improving our lives step by step. And above all, stay awesome.